Good morning, everybody. Once again, this is Rama on Writing, coming to you from a beautiful and rainy Sedona, Arizona. We just got back from our Santa Fe retreat, and there are a few of you on the Zoom that were there with us. It was a very intense group, and we got a lot of good things done. And I learned a little bit more about how to work with the revision components for the authors, and I am contemplating for next week, since I will not be able to do a Rama on Writing broadcast for the next 2 weeks, as Tom and I will be doing webinar retreats, although I'll be here in Sedona doing my end of things. And I thought that I may schedule the Rama on Writing time slot to do a revision webinar so that the people in Knoxville and Atlanta can attend, and also some of the people that are working on their books in the publishing program can also tune in and get a little refresher course and ask some questions. So anyway, today's topic is on targeting our audience, or a target audience. And I think that if we think back to developing a product, one of the first things that a good business person will do is to do some market research for their product. And I think that this is something that we've all failed to do. Now, I'm not sure if we would have gained anything if we had. We still want to write the book that we write, but there are a few components of that book that I think we could gain some insight into and use a slightly different language in certain places. And what I'm referring to is the back cover and maybe some of the intro pages, the pages that tend to have a little longer legs than the book might at first. So we've talked a lot about a process using Twitter to get followers, and the target audience process is really not that different from that sort of modus operandi. The first step is to try to determine who we are writing for. So we kind of look at, well, what's the topic of our book and who might it appeal to? If I write for mountain bikers, well, they're outdoorsy people that would like it, even though they're not mountain bikers. But in reality, I found that there are a lot of people that have never ridden a bike and don't do anything outdoorsy that have really enjoyed my book. So you kind of have to start thinking outside of the box a little bit and try to develop a demographic, the people that want to experience some mountain biking type activity, but really are never going to do that, could be part of my audience. As I was talking to Linda, we were talking about, well, she's a traveling, older gal, and initially she felt that her market was for people of her age group that weren't traveling. And to me, she's a perfect everyone's favorite grandma, because I think that a lot of us younger people, would really appreciate having contact with our grandma, and we wanted our grandma to be the traveling, wild woman that Linda is. So we can kind of look at all the different possibilities of who would like to hear about our books. Many of us write about spiritual components. What exactly are we writing about? Who exactly are we writing for? Then the next component is, well, where are these people? Where do they hang out? We can't just hang out in a coffee shop 24/7 and try to find the people that are interested in travel or mountain biking or spiritual evolution or things along those lines. So we do need to use our digital component to track down where our audience is. And there's a lot of different aspects or different places to find them. One simple approach is to look at books that are in the same genre and look at the authors that wrote those books and actually start tracking down, going to their website, looking at their verbiage, looking at who's interrelating on their blog, if they have a blog, going to their social media following, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and taking a look at who is following them. And as we learned with Denise's approach to getting Twitter followers, we probably needed to take it a step further and find out what they're posting. What are they actually posting about, and is that what we're writing about? We start to realize and interrelate with them on a social media or an internet type basis. Now, we've spent most of our time, we talk about digital marketing in the social media vein, and we haven't devoted a lot of attention to what's known as forums. And there was one other component, I'm just drawing a blank, but a forum is generally a website-based discussion group where it's genre specific. There's a big mountain bike forum called MTBR, and this is probably the most active mountain bike discussion on the internet. And so by identifying some of these forum places, we have a great spot to start plugging in and commenting and kind of looking at what's the topic of the day for people that are interested in our genre. And we do need to start interrelating to these people, whether we go track them back down to social media, because if you have a name, you can move into a social media. I had a conversation with a gentleman. He actually called just as the webinar was starting, and we're kind of looking at how to get him engaged in his target audience market. And he's into dragons. His book is about dragons. He draws dragons. And I had this brilliant idea. Well, is there a Dragon Con, a dragon convention that goes on? And sure enough, we found that there is a dragon convention that goes on. So as we look at these sorts of avenues for where our group of people hang out, we can look at events. There's a lot of teleseminars that go on. Denise Casino and I are talking about establishing something like that for our authors. But there's conventions, there's big groups that gather in pretty nearly every genre out there. And regardless of whether we have the ability to actually attend one of these, you can start to see who are the presenters in these types of big gatherings. And then you can, again, track down through their social media and their website who are the people that are following these people, and start collecting and trying to interrelate with them, friend them, in both our Twitter and our Facebook. But the one key that we don't generally do when we're trying to friend people for a Twitter account is we're not really looking so much about what they are posting about. because this is really a critical component in how we frame our message, is if people are posting in a certain way and discussing a certain topic, well, we might want to just tweak our message a little bit, or our verbiage a little bit, so that we can, feel like we're interrelating with them. I see a big tail floating around there on MJ's site. My big tail is sitting beside me. She's not on the webinar today. Okay, so anyway, this becomes a process that we can identify and follow and start to relate to an audience that's out there. And I truly believe that if we do this at the front end of our book writing experience, that we can benefit much greater than we would if we just disregarded it and wrote our book and then went to this process. So I think that this is one of the flaws that I found in my understanding of writing the book. That, sure, I had a sense because I was in my industry for 20 plus years before I wrote the book, but I really didn't go about tracking, on the internet, where are these people collecting? How do we find them? And as we've talked about over time in our social media discussions, that there are groups on pretty nearly every social media type, specific groups for specific topics. So one of the big steps for us is to plug into those groups. It's not only individuals, it's groups. And if we can find these groups, it's like then we can get a bigger bang for our buck. It's like if you're mining gold and you find a vein of gold, you're going to get more gold out of that vein than if you dig here and dig there and dig here and dig there. So one of the big components is to utilize the groups that are on all those social media types, and also step beyond the traditional social media and look at forums and bulletin boards and things like that where people are, gathering. In the old days, I think it was called a BBS, a bulletin board service. That was the first engagement online for these group chats and group plugins where people would gather. And then the next step is to actually look at real-time gatherings. And if you can't attend those in person, due to whatever reason, we still have a way of finding out what's going on there. Sometimes there's even live streaming at these events, but if not live streaming, then they do many times put YouTube videos up from them, and we can again get an idea of who's looking at that. Even on YouTube, people comment. See, this is a fuzzy one here. People comment on, on a video, and these people this is like mining for our gold, are these people that are willing to comment. The ones that are willing to engage generally are better customers for us. The ones that are just passive viewers may not actually be call to action type people. So if we can take a look at the people that are engaging, maybe even look at who's following them. Sometimes we have to go from one source like a YouTube into a social media group and following that person's name and things along those lines. I was doing a search this morning, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was in an article, someone's blog article about a target audience. And so I started to click on the picture of the person that made the comment. It took me to the Gravatar website. Gravatar is a way of having an icon represent us as we post in many places. And I realized, that there's a profile-based component of that website, and the next step is to see if you can move from that website to a major social media website on that person and see who is following them, and then start to engage in that line of discussion. So this is the general approach that we take to find our social media followers, and in taking it to the next step to turn it into a target audience, we need to get deeper into their heads. We have to actually see what they're interested in, how they post, what the discussions of the day or the week are in these genres. And it does take a little bit of market research, which I think in most cases, most of us have ignored completely. This is the step. This is like the first step in building your author platform. So as you can see, everything is interconnected. As we look and move forward in our marketing, we have to look in all these different places to find that gold that we're looking for. And the general topic really is the author platform. So this becomes another one of those components in our author platform, which also includes our author identity, because now we're starting to identify who our target audience is. Well, now we need to brand ourselves with an identity that appeals to those people. Because if we're vague, we're going to have less of a chance of attracting their attention. And when I talk about author identity, I kind of am talking about a character. Linda and I have no problems because we're characters. But some of the authors are really afraid to come out of their shell a little bit. And if you understand marketing, it's being memorable. So what actions, what things you say, when I first started these Zoom webinars, I said, funny hats welcome. Well, that was a character type approach. So, certain, things like that can help us all come out of our shell a little bit and to, put on this, author persona. It's an interesting phenomenon because, in most cases, we're authors and we would prefer to just write our books, be done with that, hand it on to someone else and let them do all the promoting and all the other stuff for our book. And it would be good if that were a reality. And unless you're writing the book essentially for your small group of friends and your family, we can't really afford to, just do that. So we need to look at, well, what is the way to attract that audience and be memorable? One of the things that Tom would talk about in his blogging webinars is that you don't want your blog to be vanilla. You want it to be controversial. You don't want to be everyone's friends. You want to attract attention and attract a response. The people that are great at doing these are some of the talk radio folks, both on the conservative and the liberal side. They've become characters. Howard Stern is a character. Rush Limbaugh is a character. I mean, I truly doubt that any of those people really believe anything that they say. They're saying it to get a reaction, the performers. And to some degree, that's our next step, is to become performers, okay? That's why I do the author interviews, to help the authors begin to talk in front of people, to be a performer. This webinar time is here for you to do your performance. Tom Carroll and I are talking about having him do a presentation in his genre so that he can get better at doing the presentation. And this is a great group because we're all friends here. And some of the questions and comments that he might get could create some light bulb effects in how he, moves forward in his presentations. Bill Murphy and I have talked about the enlightened trader persona. He's a stock trader, and we've talked about that as a possibility for a direction for him to go. So there are all kinds of different directions. James Parker is a great storyteller. He doesn't believe this yet, but he will, as he gets more into it, because he'll start to see that this is a persona that he can fill those shoes easily. So we all have a skill set that we can easily apply to our identity as an author, and it's kind of just sorting through how do we do it, where do we start, and who are we going to touch by doing this. So that becomes the approach of targeting our audience. So we first need to find out who they are, then we really need to find out what they're thinking and what they're interested in, because we need to engage with them, and we have to figure out how to do that. It's easy enough to find out where they are, although it does take an effort to find the groups in your social media, find the forums, look at the authors in the same genre that we're writing, and backtrack through. Well, who's following them? What are they, what are these authors talking about to engage in an audience? So we want to replicate, we don't necessarily want to mimic what they're doing. We want to just look at it and then reframe in our own words and to have our own message and our own identity. But this is where we pick up the information. The resource comes from the authors' websites, the forums, the social media groups, and through the discussions that get comments. That's what we start to look at. Oh, look, this person talked about this, and look at all the comments they got. But when they talked about that, nobody responded. So that tells us that people are interested in certain topics and certain types of information. And so we tailor our message and our character and our engagement along those lines. All the information is out there for us. We don't have to create anything from scratch. We just need to do our market research to determine what is going on in our field. So anyway, that's my general discussion on targeting an audience. Let's open this up a little bit to some discussion, because some of you have actually done some of these steps. I know Tom Pitts has done, some work in this area already, and the rest of us need to follow his lead here. Tom has been into this process a little bit longer than some of us. Bill Murphy has done some work here. Linda, has done it without even knowing that she's doing it. I have a little bit of insight into my audience, but my identity is changing because I write on various different topics. So we all, need to look at ourselves and look at what we're planning on writing and start to tailor our message for that group of audience that's out there. So does anyone have any comments they'd like to share about targeting the audience and where they might find it or where they have found it? Okay, I'm going to unmute Linda here, even though I know she knows how to unmute herself. Linda, what do you have to share this morning?
Well, a question just occurred to me. I have a website that's more on the topic of the book I'm writing this time. It's not a travel book. It's a spiritual book. And I've had this people writing questions into me for 4 years now. And the last chapter of this book is, well, the whole book is quoting many of their answers on my blog posts. But the last one is the topic that I got the most interest from the public, and that was about their pets dying. What happens to my pet when it dies, and is it okay, and lots of things. So that's the last chapter of this manuscript. Would it be wise for me to put, say, the whole last chapter on my blog? It'd be mighty long, but just to let these people know that some of their postings are going to appear in the book, and here it is all together rather than scattered in answers filtered all over the blog.
Very good question, Linda. Your last chapter is probably, 25 blog postings and not just one. So you want to take advantage of that to keep the conversation going. So by breaking it into smaller pieces, that means that you can engage them over a longer period of time than just a single post. And
those answers do appear all over my blog already because they're the individual as they came in, but they're scattered. And so I do want to start telling the blog posters that they're going to appear, their comments are in my book. But I also if I just do it in chunks, it's no different than the first time that it appeared on the blog.
Okay, I see a structural question here, and this is actually a good question. How is your blog set up, and how should it be set up? Okay, many people have blog on different topics, okay? For example, I'm going to be blogging on mountain biking, probably Sedona mountain biking in particular, and specifically, I'm going to be blogging about, adventures on the Big Island in Hawaii, and I'm going to be blogging on, what we do here in the mornings, publishing, marketing, writing, promotion of books. So how do we organize that? So if somebody's, just into the mountain biking component, they don't need to sort through a series of blog postings about Hawaii, which they're not interested in. Okay, generally, when you set up your blog, you can set it up to relate to different topics, okay? One component, and this is a visual thing, and this is kind of, as I go around in circles with my own website, I start to think, well, how do I set this up so that it actually has some kind of consistency? And I've often thought of setting the blog up on a single page with 3 columns, okay? Just 3, just columns, and one blog column is, mountain biking, one is Hawaii, one is book promotion, and then the archives go to their own page, essentially. So that if somebody's interested in the mountain biking component of it, they read, they click the read more button, and that takes them to a blog that's specifically on the mountain biking components. Now, bear in mind that you can still have links to some of the other, okay, well, here's my other blog, so you want to take advantage of trying to push them into one of the other topics that you're talking about. Because if they like your style, generally, they're willing to look and see, well, what does Rama have to say about Hawaii? I've been interested in Hawaii. So this is a structural question. It's a really good question. It's come up often, is to relating to blog topics. Number one, what do I blog on? And then how do you organize this? So this is a good structural question. If you look at blogs, you'll see that people do have them broken into their topics. And I think, my gut feel says that if you have a blog button, let's say on that lead-in page that people land on, Linda Brown author page or whatever, right? And they land on there and you have Linda's blog. You have it, not a tiny little thing, because we want to really jump people into the blog, because that's so important and critical. And I think that this is one of the big flaws on many websites, is that the blog is a tiny little click button. We really want to highlight it, even with a banner approach to some degree. So now you click on that and it opens up to another page. And this other page can be very specific, with 3 different columns, or it could have the current blog of the day, and then on the sidebar, Linda's blog about travel, Linda's blog about pets, Linda's blog about channeling information from the unknown. However you want to describe those things. So there are different structural components that you can do. Now, what works best, I can't tell you, okay? Greg will have one opinion. I will have another opinion. I'll talk to Denise. She'll have a third opinion. It really, I truly don't think it matters, as long as we are comfortable that people can navigate the system that we create. This is a great question, Linda. I'm glad that you asked it, because this is such a common question when people start thinking about blogging and what they should blog about. And sure, you want to blog about your book, but blogging is also a way of sharing who you are. And if you've got an interest, if you're interested in movies and you go to movies a lot, there's no reason why you can't write about, I went to this movie here and this is what I thought about it. Those are the components of who we are. And that's what the point of the blog is. So we don't necessarily have to try to figure out how every blog posting is about our book. I don't know if I answered your question completely, but I think I started to get into some of the guts of it.
Well, I see now I need to combine my 2 websites. The first one is about my travel, because it came along after I published my first book. And then the second one is about spiritual matters. So they're kind of separate. I don't even link the 2 of them. And so I need to do a lot of work. I got to get my web designer to help me.
Well, Linda, Greg, our web component of our publishing program, can help you with this, okay? What I see is something where there's a main page that comes up that, I'm not sure exactly what's on that, but from that page, you click on this button, you get to that website, you click on this button, you get to the other website. Yeah. Okay?
It's part of my branding. I still don't know what, I'm a woo-woo traveler.
The woo-woo traveler, there you go.
You should write a blog post and put it on each website about the spiritual nature of travel and how they interrelate to each other and what you've discovered, from your own experiences. And that would actually tie them together pretty well, and then you could just link them together.
And sometimes I do. I write one blog for both sites, but I don't know if that links them. If somebody's reading them on one site, if they would go to the second one automatically. And I know I need to do it. I just haven't addressed it yet. Like 2 fractured personas. But yeah, and I haven't written about the spiritual aspect of traveling.
Linda, there's always a link button, okay? There's always a link button that whenever you're doing your blog post, you need to remember to do 2 things. Always sign it with your name, okay? Always sign it with your name. And to always put your links in to your author page and to your books in Amazon. Now, you do that for 2 reasons.
What?
Huh?
Say that again.
You do two things. You always sign your name every time you blog.
At the end of the blog post?
Doesn't matter. You put your name there either in the title, Woo Woo Travels with Linda Brown.
Yeah.
Okay? Vienna today. All right? And then you can sign it again at the bottom of the page. This was Woo Woo Travels with Linda Brown. Now you do that because every time you hit that post button, that Googles you, and that is a hit on your Google. And so anytime anybody Googles Woo Woo Travels or Googles Linda Brown, your name is going to start filling up the page, and you're going to start crawling up the top of the page. And that's what you want. The second thing you have to do is make sure you hit your link button to your author page and to your book, so people can immediately hit that button because it causes a link, and it goes immediately to Amazon where your book is for sale.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. I really have to explore that. The weird thing is, with a name like Linda Brown, it's like Joe Smith, you know, or just so anonymous. But when I Google my name, I come up maybe 3 times on the first page. So with such an anonymous name, I've already got a jump. So these things would help.
So yeah, so set yourself aside as Woo Woo Travel, Linda Brown, and Spiritual Advisor. And make sure you sign everything with that.
Yeah.
So that when people are doing Linda Brown, you pop up Woo Woo Travels with Linda Brown, you pop up Spiritual Advisor, and you pop up Linda J. Brown. But you have to make sure you sign that every time you post, because that's what moves you up the Google spectrum.
Wow. Thank you. It was nice to talk to you this weekend, too. Good to get acquainted.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, I'd like to add something to what MJ said. Now, she's right. You know, she's really talking about the hashtag approach of Twitter, that you always, you know, want to keep your hashtags going. Now, in addition to doing it on your post, every email that you send out can have that same information at the bottom of the email. Okay, you can develop a template in all different email programs, and it can be there on every email. I notice that Deb McTiernan does that. Every email I get from her, she's got, you know, hashtag actual magic. She's got a link to her website, a link to her Amazon. And I've noticed that many other people that I communicate with are not doing that component. So I'm glad that MJ mentioned it, and I'm just saying, hey, let's extend that to our normal emails as well, because, you know, it doesn't matter if they click it or not, but if it's not there, they never will click it, right? So, you know, if it's something that we can build in as a template, then, you know, what the heck not? Okay, it looks like Amy's going to tell us how to do this.
No, I was just saying, Linda, I've got the same problem in that my name is very vanilla. I mean, how more vanilla can be Amy Dean? You know, 7 letters, come on. It's not unique. I mean, there are even other engineers by the name of Amy Dean. But they're not necessarily authors. So I've been kind of toying around with, you know, okay, so at the moment I'm writing fiction, but sort of my approach to life is kind of an engineering perspective, but a feminine engineering perspective. So I'm seriously considering Lady Engineer Amy D, just as being, you know, it's memorable. You know, you just, and I've got Browns in my family too. In fact, my dad's mother's maiden name was Brown. So it's a challenge a lot of people have. We don't, not all of us have memorable names.
My maiden name was Dickinson. So that's an author type name I gave up when I married a Brown.
But the thing is, you have to make your own name memorable, and sometimes a simpler name can be easier from that standpoint because it's easier to remember as long as you make it something linked to something that people want to remember.
True. Good point.
Just a thought.
I think Tom Pitts had a comment. Do you want to unmute yourself, Tom?
Yes. And Linda, congratulations for being that far up on the Google page. And just remember, Dan Brown had a problem. Okay? It's not a problem when you're doing what you're doing. And something, who that? On the finding your audience, sometimes the presentation, you got to remember that the media is the message. Famous ad man, back when the television became the way to advertise, coined that phrase, the media is the message. And what's happening is we're drilling into Facebook and Twitter, and we're forgetting quite a bit of the other media and things we can access through the social media. And one of the things I'm researching is book clubs. I just met an author a couple weeks ago who went from 100 sales a year to 20,000, and she used, one of her methods was book clubs. Every club she found on the web, she would contact, sign up, and offer to do an interview as an author on their book club through Skype, or actually appearing if they were in her state. And so you might do that, Linda, with travel book clubs. And the e-zines, magazines, print magazines and e-zines are not social media, but an example for Linda would be she could take all those interviews, write an article about how people deal with their pet passing and the spiritual aspect of it, write an article, send it out to electronic magazines and print magazines, and you can, there's a way to put it out there that just is available for any publication who wants to pick it up. And of course, your tag is at the end of the article. Also, she could, and I'm going to do this, offer interviews to any local newspaper or blog talk radio. Just do an interview on some favorite topic. But you have to offer and be available for those people. Everybody's looking for a good interviewee. And I'm going to use Linda as an example again. She could offer that free chapter if you sign up for her email list. So once you look a little bit beyond social media, I think we've got to do that. And an example of someone who has two websites and put them into one would be Catherine Kerrigan. Her interest in orchids and her spiritual self-help books, I think, blend really well on her website. So there's an example. And also on who I am as an author, it's a little bit linked to what my audience looks at. I think they actually still read magazines and they read long books. So I've got to, Tumblr and Pinterest and Twitter they're great, but I'm not going to reach my full audience. And oh, by the way, that Facebook article Rama posted, a beginner's guide to Facebook Insights. Insights is an actual tab on the Facebook page. There is a lot of information there, and they just added some. And one of them was demographics. I looked at the age groups and men or women who were looking at my posts. Oddly enough, women under 20 and over 50 were a big part of my audience. Men tended to be military age, 18 to 25. That was my biggest audience. So, aha, that's who I'm already reaching. And the big key is start putting yourself out there. I was fiddled around with Facebook, and finally I just started putting stuff out there. This is interesting. This caught my eye. It raised some passion in me. I posted it. And now I'm starting to get about 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5 will get a reaction. That's one little bit of information I had that week that I wouldn't have had without just putting myself out there. So, in that, I found out there was no way I could wait till I knew exactly what my platform was. I'd still be waiting, because you find out by doing. And I'm going to get up a report on how these book clubs work, and I'll share it with everybody. It'll probably be a month before I have anything concrete to say. And I'm going to do 2 ebook giveaways. Amazon, you can any 5 days in a row, or pick any 5 days in a 90-day period, and you can do an free ebook promotion, and Amazon will help. When my 90-day period runs out, I'm going to pick something like I've got a bunch of EPUB, ebook, or EBUB, BookBub. I'll make the list. There's several that run free ebook promotions for you. You just make it available for free to them, and they will hammer it. So I'll get a report up on all that. But I think the big thing is just start, put on a clown suit and go out on the street and start waving.
Tom, I really think I want to thank you for your comments. I think what Tom showed us is that, we can even think outside of the box beyond, the normal social media. And I think that makes a lot of sense. There are the e-zines, there are magazines. Many of us have a passion for a topic that, would be perfect for one of those things. We seem to always neglect to understand that most things that are ongoing, as far as a magazine or an e-magazine or a website with a blog, is that, we think that these people have all the content in the world. And the bottom line is most of these kind of places are content starved. They're looking for somebody to help out. And, you don't necessarily get money for contributing, but what you do get is you get access to the resource. You get to have your byline, your hashtag Linda Brown, or hashtag Woo Woo Traveler, or hashtag pet detective, or whatever kind of thing that we talk about, that MJ had identified. We want to sign everything with those sorts of things. And we are authors, all of us. That's why we're here. So it's easier for us than most people to actually write things, and to sit down and to write a 500-word piece or a 1,000-word piece. That in the realm of what we've created is very, very short. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time. A 1,000-word piece, writing Tom Bird style, it's a half-hour writing and maybe an hour of fine-tuning. If we're very concerned, like Tom Carroll and I talked about early before the webinar started, is that, we do need to polish from the initial word output that we create. So, these are great ideas, Tom. I thank you for sharing it. I think that, also talking in front of people in different organizations, book clubs, pet adoption gatherings, there's all kind of things that if we're paying attention, we can plug into and talk about. So keep that in mind. Always keep your eyes on what's going on. And, usually we find out about it when it happens, not when they're planning it. So, maybe we miss the first time they do it, but if we engage and we find out who's putting it on, then we can be part of the next go around. It's all a matter of building and growing. Tom Carroll, I know you had unmuted yourself. Do you have some comments?
No, Tom Pitts took the words out of my mouth. Linda was talking about her name, and the obvious remark, Dan Brown has done pretty well with the last name. So Tom and I were on the same wavelength.
One of the keys to success like Dan Brown is to write more books. Get the body of books out there. I've kind of redefined one of Tom's lecture points that he used to use when he talked about the publishing industry and how it used to operate. He used to say that when a publisher signed an author, they signed that author for 5 books, knowing that the first 3 books would probably lose money for the publisher. And if the author was going to catch on, it was the 4th book that they would start to catch on. Well, we also need to view that and say, well, heck, 1 book isn't necessarily enough. If we're going to go through an effort to market and promote, doesn't it make sense to have 4 or 5 books like MJ Della Pena has? She's got 5 or 6 books out there in crossing a number of different genres. That's an important component, because if they find you and they like you, there's no reason why they're not going to cross through the genres to look at your work, your body of work. And if you are going to promote and you're going to spend an hour promoting, doesn't it make more sense to have, 2 or 3 or 4 books or products to promote as well? Many of the authors in our programs are going to really be teaching. They're building a platform for teaching. I know Tom Carroll and I have talked about this many times, that, that is a great component of the directions that we can take. And that's where the money is. If you develop a teaching, a webinar, seminar kind of thing, then you have your books available there, and you usually sell, a third to half of the group that you're talking in front of a book, in addition to having them pay you for a class. So these are the components that we look at as we look at our audience, as we look at our brand, as we look at our platform. These are the most important, most critical components. Some of us, our platform is just to have a bunch of books. Well, we had to have the bunch of books. We can't just have 1 book. So I think it was, someone in the webinar earlier in the week, we were talking about revision. She was working on, she had submitted book 1, she had finished the poster board on book 2, and her question was, well, should I be writing book 3? And I said, yes, book 3 and book 4. So, one of the things that, if you work with Denise, or even if you do it on your own, you can put your book out there on Amazon in a pre-release form. All essentially you need is an ISBN number and either a PDF of the interior or a cover image. That doesn't even have to be the cover image that you're going to use, when you actually get the book done, but it is a cover image. So it starts to attract attention. Any other comments today?
Rob, I just, everything that you have just finished saying was interesting and important, but backtracking a moment, you were talking about authors writing in different genres, completely different styles. Just occurs to me that sometimes works against you. Michael Connelly, for instance, great novelist, his Harry Bosch character, really won him acclaim. But if you look at Michael Connelly, you see that he's written some things in completely different styles. And to me, they've always been disappointing. I guess what I'm saying is, once we find something that really works, then maybe it's best to stay with the strong suit. Then at the same time, that doesn't necessarily work because Dan Brown wrote 4 now novels with this Langdon character, and maybe I'm the only one, but when you get to this last book, I was bored from about the first 20 pages on. It's so formulistic. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying, other than that we simply want to write well, to find out where our primary audience is and what our strong suit is, write a good book, hopefully write 2 or 3 more that are just as good, but not fall into a pattern and be a formula writer.
Tom, this is an interesting quandary that many authors face. I don't know if any of you have watched a TV show called Castle. He is a writer, he's a detective writer, and he meets with all these other writers. They play poker, right? And so he killed off his main character that made him famous. And all the other writers say, well, I don't know why you killed, couldn't you just injured him or something like that? And, and he developed a new character. And, it is possible that the first go around of the new character doesn't have the same appeal as the 5 or 6 or 10 with the old character. But over time, more than likely, the type of writer that these people are, will develop the character. I'm not sure, how to compare ourselves with it. I mean, it's nice to compare ourselves with the best writers out there, and to know deep down inside that when we get our 10 books out there, we'll be successful too. But interesting quandary. Okay, Lynn, I see your hand going up. Let's see. Oh, I unmuted you. You unmuted you. Okay.
Actually, I just wanted to make sure before you finish up today that I can check in with you on one thing. I didn't have a particular comment about platforms or branding.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to check in about your topic right now is fine. It probably will help other people as well, and it's an open forum.
Okay, so I talked with Tom yesterday, and he said the book is ready to go to the style editor, and I'm really excited, very excited. Yeah. So I guess you're going to take care of that?
Well, now that somebody has told me to, yes. This is always our problem when we try to communicate internally, like the government, right? One branch says yes, but they don't tell the other branch that's affected by it. So, it kind of sits in limbo. I will pass your book on to one of our style editors. I've got a couple of them and a couple of books going right now. So I'll put that on my note to do, and we'll move ahead with that. Now, have you started working on your website with Greg at this point, or no?
No.
Okay, I'm going to, when I send that off, I will also send an email out to Greg, and he will contact you. Now, with the web stuff, it is very confusing, and web people like to charge extra for all kinds of services that you may or may not need. So my rule of thumb is don't buy anything other than your domain names and your hosting. Anything else, if you have a question on, let's talk about it, okay? Because most of the stuff is needed. It's just when is it needed? And a lot of it has monthly charges. So, do you need that today, or can you wait 6 months before you get involved with that? Most of us haven't had much of a website prior to working with Tom's webmaster, so any cost on the web seems like it's exorbitant. The reality is that our cost for all the web stuff that Greg does is very minimal compared to what you could spend, but it's still an expenditure. So, anytime you have a question about, do I need this or what is this, I can help. Okay. So keep that in mind. And you can see that this is a problem area. That's why I'm identifying this at this point in time. Okay. I just want everyone to know that, things can get, cost. And, it's good to know the pros and the cons and the whens and the wheres.
So time-wise, once it goes to the style editor, then how long before it comes back?
It takes at least 2 weeks for the style editors to roll through and prepare an evaluation. Sometimes it can be done a little quicker. Sometimes it takes a few days more, but rule of thumb is 2 weeks. How long is your manuscript offhand? Do you know?
About 25,000 words.
More than likely it could be done a little quicker. Okay. So we'll move it on. I'll probably move it on today, but I don't know if either of my style editors actually do work on the weekends or not.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Congratulations. That's a big step.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on any topic that we've discussed or haven't discussed today?
Rama, you just mentioned things that we can spend money on with Greg optimizing our websites. Has anybody come across the need to optimize for phones and tablets? I look at my website, it hasn't been optimized, but everything is still quite viewable. So who knows anything about this?
Tom, actually, this is a very appropriate question at an appropriate time. This week, Google announced that they were going to create a new algorithm for ranking websites that paid a very high, premium to websites that were mobile device compatible. It is a changing time. And as I talked to Greg about this on Wednesday, he said that, he has moved most of the authors to templates that were, mobile optimized templates nowadays. So this could be something that you may need to update because of the change in Google's algorithm. They said, that this update is going to affect the largest percentage of websites that any of their recent updates have affected. So, good question at a good time. There's so many different WordPress templates that are available, and some of them are optimized for mobile devices and some aren't. And so I'm not sure if the one that you're using was optimized or not, but you could certainly contact Greg and ask what his recommendation is for that.
Yeah, I'll get back to him. I'd asked that specific question, and he wasn't familiar with anything about Google making a change. So, we need to compare notes and everybody get on the same page.
Well, this was something that happened this week, Tom. So unless you spoke with Greg this week, it wasn't publicized. I think the article I read came out on Monday or Tuesday. So, and I did talk to Greg about this this week. So he was aware of it as much as I was. He probably had a little bit more insight into what that meant.
Great, I'll get a hold of him. Thank you.
Okay. MJ, do you have another comment? Looks like you've unmuted yourself.
Yes, I was just going to say that I have found through talking with attorneys who've paid thousands of dollars for optimization, that most of these things are scams, and you can do a lot of this work yourself. And I know it sounds crazy, but go to Word Tracker, figure out what words people are tracking, and use those words in your blogs. And that you can do your own optimization by doing that. So if you're blogging, go to Word Tracker, figure out what words are being tracked for your topic, and then sprinkle them liberally like salt in a meal, and use that. And so you become your own word optimizer. And you have to be a little careful with these people who want thousands of dollars to optimize your website, because Google's gotten all over them now, and you're paying for nothing.
Are we talking about the same thing then? The optimizing for tablets and phones, is this the same conversation?
No.
Because I would love to know that I didn't have to spend another $400 or $500.
Actually, what I'm talking about are, once you start doing your website, you'll have people say, and in fact, even GoDaddy will say, oh, for an extra, $25 a month, which isn't bad, we'll optimize your website. Well, what they're doing is they're using words to try to get you moved up when people are Googling you or when people are looking for certain things. So if you're truly blogging, if you're truly posting, if you're truly doing these things to move your own name up the Google search, go to Word Tracker, figure out what words are people searching. If you're writing about mobile devices, or if you're, and Tom, I don't know exactly what you're focused on, but what is your focus?
I guess you'd say self-help, spiritual, mind, body, spirit. But, I veer off into some other things. So.
All right. So go to Word Tracker. Go to Word Tracker. Figure out what words that in your wheelhouse are being searched for the topic. For instance, mind, body. You put a lot of mind and body, or you put mind, body, spiritual healing. And you put that in your title, and then you put it in your first paragraph, and you make sure you put it in your last paragraph. What that does is, when people are researching mind, body, and spirit, that is optimizing your visibility on the website.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
So do your own research, then put those words in your own blog.
Well, just one last thing, and I don't want to dominate here, let somebody else have a turn. But Rama, what was the site? Where did you read this on Google about their new algorithm?
I may have posted it on the Rama on Writing Facebook page, so check that. Otherwise, I will post it. Just to reiterate the two conversations that we're going with, and they're both really important conversations. What MJ Delapina is talking about is the search engine optimization of your website so that Google can find you and rank your website. She said, if you are blogging, and I want to correct her here because if isn't an option, okay? So the point is that search engine optimization does not work unless you are blogging, okay? And that's the key to getting. There are two components. Number one is, when every time you have a blog posting, Google will search your website, okay? It triggers the search engine spider as a new update on your website, and they go out and check your website. Number two, the keywords that you're using are critical so that your website can be ranked when people search under those terms. Now, the keywords need to find themselves into the title and the first sentence of your blog posting. Okay, that is a critical component, and yes, sprinkled throughout the rest of the posting is a good idea. Okay, but I really had to clarify, because this is not an if. Okay, if you want to have a successful business, if you want to be a successful author, the blog is more important than the book, gang. You know, I've already done two webinars entitled that, and that's just the first two. You know, blogging is real critical. Now, the other conversation that we're talking about is the changing dynamics of the web. Okay, mobile devices are being used for searching more and more and more. And many of our websites, especially the older ones, were not, compatible with those mobile searches. But I think there's a deeper question here that we may need to explore in another webinar. How do we optimize our message for a mobile device? I mean, this is interesting. I don't have the answer to this one. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research, but, I can see that certain content is going to be, or certain way to put content out there is going to be more compatible with a mobile device than it would, if we presented it a different way. So I think that ultimately, Tom, Carol, we need to actually investigate this deeper question rather than just change the website to be optimized for mobile devices. Maybe change the way we post content so that it becomes a more useful on a mobile device type of a search. That's what just came to me as we started talking about this, because as Tom Pitts mentioned, the Instagrams, the Twitters, the Tumblrs, the fast food of social media, it's changed that way for a reason. And maybe we need to change the way we put out content for that very same reason. So that will be another topic for us to actually get into. But ultimately, if you have an older website that's not optimized for mobile device searches, you are going to lose points in the Google ranking with the new algorithm that Google has just brought into play. And this does affect a lot of websites. It affects the most amount of websites that any Google change in algorithm has. So they're looking down the road, and whether we like it or not, these big boys, the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks and sites like that control the dialogue. So we have to kind of, tailor ourselves to fit into their new mold. And, it's hard enough for us to get our stuff on the web in the first place, but now we have to actually, become more maybe fast food oriented or fast media oriented would be a better term, perhaps.
How soon do you think Greg could come on and give us an overview of what we actually need to do, how much we actually need to spend?
I'll talk to him on that one. I think even he will have to start researching. And, as I say, to change the template so that it is able to, be, to work with with the mobile devices is one step that's important. But actually, the real crux of this discussion, I believe, is how do we stay on the cutting edge with our information so that we're not old school posting on a new website and not getting any results.
And that's keywords as much as anything you're saying.
It's keywords, but I think it's also, developing, for lack of a better term, or maybe this is a better term, fast media, is where it's all going, just like we, at one time, there was no fast food in America, if you can remember that far back. I mean, I remember the first McDonald's. So, sometime before I was a certain age, there were no McDonald's. And food was thought of differently. And then as the fast food industry came about, food has been thought differently. Well, I think we're really starting to, be impacted by the change in mobile device use. Ultimately, I think that's what's going on, Tom.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we don't lose nutrition. We don't lose the impact of writing and communication like we lost nutrition in fast food. But there's a dinosaurian comment.
No, that's, actually, that refers back to what Rama said about the sites and everyone's content hungry. There's so much fast food type ideas going out on the web. It's just blah, 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 blah. If you put something out there with content and meaning, I'm seeing that people will pick up, aha, that's a nutritious post. And just aside, if you have Greg's website set up through Silver Knight, he uses WordPress. If you look on the template, the styles all have on there, whether it's Android and iPhone. And you can actually, if you already have a website with Greg, you can go to the dashboard and you want to be brave, change styles. And I don't know if that messes the whole website up or not, but you can just pick a template that says Android, iPhone, mobile device compatible. And it's that simple. And another thing, a concept, I don't know if everybody has the Instagrams and Twitters and Pinterest, they're real time happening. They're just like people hanging out in the coffee shop, and they go in there and they hear stuff. And if something piques their interest, they will take that image or 130 words and they will look deeper to maybe a Facebook post or a Tumblr post, which is a little larger. They like that, they'll go to your blog site. They like that, and then they'll go to your book. It's through the funnel, watching this fast food of information you buy. And I kind of reversed engineer it on one of my blogs. There was an article I hadn't finished, but I was writing. And I noticed there were paragraphs and bullet points. They were blogs. I had 5 paragraphs in that article with 5 blogs. So I went and used 3 of those to blog out. And I took that blog and I brought it down into a Facebook post. I condensed it, Facebook post. Took the Facebook post and made it fit on Twitter. Took the image and put that on Pinterest. So it's, I left a trail of breadcrumbs from my article, which I haven't posted yet, the article. Good advice to Linda, but I haven't done it myself. So I left a trail of breadcrumbs from my main thing, my book, from my article. I left it all the way to the Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram and Tumblr and Instagram. I got to get on there. So if you kind of think of that, I don't know, it might help.
Tom, I think that this is, that topic that we started to allude to is, how do we post our content in a way that engages and then gets people to click into more in depth and more in depth and more in depth. And I think that, this is a great topic for us to do some research on and to experiment with and to see what happens. But I suspect that we're at this turning point. It's been growing for a while. The fact of the matter is that, computers aren't selling, PCs and Macs aren't selling as much as they once were. It's phones and tablets and things like that where people are engaging with the internet. And we do need to look at how we can, capture that market, because regardless of, of whether we think our market is there, it is there. We just need to sort out how to leverage it. Any other comments before I go out and grab lunch today?
Where are you eating lunch?
Well, keep in mind, everyone, that for the next 2 weeks, I will not be able to do a Rama on Writing webinar as such, but I may send out a reminder to the Publish Now community that I will be doing some revision coaching. Essentially, I'll be coaching the 2 retreats, and if I'm going to be on Zoom doing it and people need a little bit of insight into that, I will try to open it up for that, the group as well, especially the Sedona and Santa Fe groups that are just coming off of the retreats. Everybody have yourself a good time, which means I think that it's possible that the next Rama on Writing webinar, official webinar, may be being broadcast from beautiful sunny Kailua Kona, Hawaii. So we'll be back. We'll be back in 3 weeks on the normal webinar, and for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to try to open up the revision component so that everyone can revisit that part of the process. Take care, everybody. Thanks for all the good comments. I think we got some good topics to move into down the road.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to mention to Bill Murphy that you're going to have a new or an old friend join you in Florida. Catherine Carrigan is moving to Florida. I don't know how far away she's going to be from you.
I saw that. She's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes away. So that'd be great.
That's pretty close. So, she's looking forward to the change, and I've been talking to her a lot. She's going to be writing book 3 in Atlanta in a couple of weeks. So she's a great role model for all of us.
Yes, she is. She's awesome.
Take care.